afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for logging in on time. My name is Grace Sonia Milano. I'm a program specialist with AARP California. It's fantastic to see you and this beautiful Travand community. We'll get started in just a bit, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves in the chat, would love to hear where you all are Zooming from today. Hello, hello. I see there's a Veronica here, Alex, Bertha, Joyce, John. Fantastic.
Have people on mute.
Yes.
Might want to unmute your phones.
I see everyone on mute here. So feel free to unmute yourselves and say hi if you like. If not, all good. You could introduce yourselves in the chat, and we'll actually have quite a bit of time at the end to talk and to answer any questions that you may have. Would even be happy to hear what you have for advice to share with respect to keeping yourself safe from frauds and scams. For those of you who just logged in, welcome to you all. My name is Grace Sonia Milano. I'm with AARP California, and joining me today is our presenter extraordinaire / AARP fraud fighter, Sarita Cardozo. Sarita is incredibly, well, I'll let Sarita introduce herself in just a moment, but what inspires me about Sarita is that she is incredibly passionate about getting out to the community and informing individuals such as yourselves as to how to protect yourself from identity theft and other types of frauds and scams. We'll have plenty of time for questions. If you have any questions at the end with Sarita, would also love to hear any tips that you have for us at the AARP community for how you keep yourself safe from frauds and scams, specifically identity theft. But sharing this information and informing others is the best way to keep ourselves and our communities protected. So we will get started in just a moment. I'm going to let Julia in here. Great. Well, we are now at 1:04. What do you think, Sarita? Should we get started?
Sure. Why not?
Great. Well, again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to turn this presentation over to Sarita Cardozo. Sarita is an AARP fraud fighter, which means she does the important work of going out into the community to inform folks such as ourselves about common frauds and scams to look out for and how to keep ourselves protected. So thank you so much, Sarita, for giving this presentation with us today. Just want to make a couple quick notes. I see a lot of folks are on mute. That's absolutely fine. If you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. There'll be plenty of time to answer your questions at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarita.
Well, thank you, Grace Sonia, and everyone. It's great to see you and participate in this wonderful event. Welcome to our presentation on identity theft and identity fraud. As Grace Sonia mentioned, my name is Sarita Cardozo. I'm a volunteer with AARP. And today I have some valuable information to share with you, and I'm sure that you too will have some wonderful tips to share. We'll have plenty of time at the end of the presentation for everyone to share tips. But feel free again to send in your comments in the chat. For those of you on the phone, please mute your phones. And for those who who are not muted on the Zoom call, please do mute yourself by going to the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen and clicking on that. Do remember that when you try to speak, you need to unmute yourself. Ask questions at the end of the presentation, and you can unmute at that time and keep your comments short so that people who want to speak can also speak. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I know Grace Sonia will take down your contact information and get back with you. Please write down your contact information. And again, thank you for coming to this session. Let's get started. Next slide, please. Okay, so today we're going to explain to you what identity theft is, and will help you to avoid becoming a target. So AARP has spoken directly with convicted criminals who explained how they do what they do. And identity thieves have high and low tech ways of stealing your identity. And we have high and low tech ways of protecting ourselves. So we'll tell you about them through the course of our discussion. And hopefully the tips we provide will keep you alert on how not to become a victim. Next slide, please, Grace Sonia. So first of all, what is identity theft? Identity theft is when someone steals your personal information, like your name, your social security number, or bank account information. Identity fraud is when someone uses that information to steal your money or commit crimes. It can include opening credit card accounts in your name, racking up thousands of dollars of debt. It can mean a scammer draining your bank accounts or applying for government benefits in your name. Identity thieves may even use your information to file bogus tax returns, and all of this can be really ruinous for a victim. So just by typing into the chat there, how many of you know someone who has been victimized by identity theft or identity fraud? Looks like some of you may know people, but yes, identity theft is a huge, in fact, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. In the US, Americans lost $117 billion to identity fraud in 2017. And that number is just getting higher and higher as people go online to do all kinds of transactions. So we need to be very alert on how to not get scammed and not become a victim of identity theft. Next slide, please, Grace Sonia. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So how do we leave ourselves vulnerable? There are many ways that we may be leaving ourselves vulnerable to identity theft. And AARP actually drove around town with a convicted identity thief. So we could learn from their perspective how we leave ourselves open to identity theft. One of the big mistakes we make is leaving personal items in our cars. The locked car is actually no deterrent to an identity thief. A common place that we might leave our personal items in is in a gym parking lot. And this is a common hit for identity thieves, since we leave our stuff in the car and then hit the gym. But another big target is also shopping mall parking lots. So keep that in mind when you go to a mall or a gym. Make sure you take your stuff with you. Another way identity thieves attack is by trolling for mailboxes. They steal incoming and outgoing mail, looking for bank statements, credit card statements, any other sensitive information. They can get a hold of your existing accounts and drain them. They can use your identity to set up new accounts in your name and rack up thousands of dollars of illegal purchases. So with that, let's think about some other ways that we might be making ourselves vulnerable to identity theft. For example, we may not secure smartphones, laptops, tablets with a passcode. We may use the same password for all devices and online accounts. Or we might trash or recycle sensitive material, including credit card offers, instead of shredding it. And also, and this is a biggie, we might open or respond to emails that ask for sensitive personal information like social security number or bank account information. This is known as phishing, and this is phishing with a PH. And it's called that because the thief will try to kind of lure you and tempt you into clicking on a link that will then take you to another site, and they will get all your information. So we need to be very aware of all these techniques that identity thieves use. Next slide, please. So what is the impact of identity fraud? Well, AARP got to talk to one victim of identity fraud who years after the occurrence is still paying the price. Well, she didn't have online access to her bank and credit card accounts or credit reports. The thief had set up access to all of them using the victim's social security number and mother's maiden name. By the time our victim figured out what was going on, it was too late. The victim's credit score had dropped dramatically as a result of fraud, and she still has trouble getting any form of credit. As you're probably aware, it's very important to have a good credit score. The higher the credit score you have, the easier it is to get better rates on credit cards and other purchases. And a low score not only affects your ability to get credit, but it can prevent you from renting an apartment or even getting a job. So it's really important to keep an eye on how secure your identity is. In any case, when this particular thief was caught, she had 10 fake IDs in her purse, including that of the victim that we're talking about. So it is very impactful if your identity is stolen. So you need to be careful at all times. Next slide, please. So after learning how easy it is for our identities to be stolen, let's learn about some low-tech and high-tech ways of protecting ourselves. And here are some ideas for low-tech ways. Number one, easiest thing to do is buy a locking mailbox. It's not expensive to buy a mailbox that locks. You can find them online or at a big box store, and the prices run around $40. Another thing is, as we mentioned before, don't leave your personal information in your car. Take it with you. Take your wallet, take your phone, take your computer. And also shred everything. A lot of us may just toss our bills, bank statements, credit card offers, or information about our Medicare in the trash or the recycling bin. It's really much safer to buy a micro-cut shredder and shred these materials so that dumpster divers cannot steal your identity. And let's see, check and monitor credit reports. Your credit report is a point-in-time record of your loans, credit cards, and your payment history. It also typically includes your address and employment history. So it's really important to monitor your reports to make sure the information on them is accurate and that someone hasn't used your identity to open an account in your name. Federal law allows each of us to get a free copy of our reports each year from the 3 credit reporting companies, and that's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And on the slide that's given, annualcreditreport.com is the only website where you can get your free reports. So ignore radio and TV ads that send you to different websites and may want you to buy a subscription to their plans. And you can choose to spread out your 3 reports throughout the year, say January, May, September, to see what's happening throughout the year. But it's also a good idea to monitor your credit reports during the peak holiday season, because there are a lot of purchases going on at that time, and a thief could easily slide in something there. So always keep an eye on your credit reports. Next slide, please, Sonia. Next slide, please.
Do you see high-tech tips?
Yeah, okay, there we go. So for some high-tech ideas, we can all take to be safer from identity theft. Instead of getting your bank and credit card statements by mail, try setting up online access and keep a close eye on activity in them. Also, be very careful when using public Wi-Fi. Don't make purchases or access your banking account when you're at a coffee shop or any other place that has free public Wi-Fi. Save that activity for when you're on a secure network, preferably at home or somewhere else where it's secure. And also, always use proven password protocols. Many of us have devices and online accounts and have passwords for them. But a lot of us might use the same password for everything, or use something that's really easy to crack, like a birthday, a pet's name, or the word password, right? Well, it's important to use different passwords for each account and device, and to make them hard to crack. And a very simple way to do that is to incorporate, uppercase, lowercase, a number, a symbol, just something that will make it a little bit more difficult for the thief. And another way also is to strengthen your account protection by using a two-factor authentication. And that is where you use your username and a password, but the site will then send you a code via text or email that you then enter to verify that it is you who is actually trying to access the site. So that's a very good way of doing it, but you need to be aware that in case there are some scams where apparently they send you a code even though you did not initiate it. So never respond to something like that. Be alert that someone is trying to hack into your account. Another thing is that you can also use a password manager, which is software that creates and stores passwords for you. And that's a good way of securing your passcodes and passwords because it does it automatically for you. Next slide, please, Sonia. So I encourage all of you to visit AARP's Fraud Watch Network. You don't even have to be a member to access this, this network. You just log on to the website. It has free information and resources online. And you can sign up for free watchdog alerts at AARP.org Fraud Watch Network. And if you sign up for these watchdog alerts, you'll receive an email every 2 weeks, which will keep you up to date on the latest ways that criminals are targeting victims. There's also a very nice feature where you can take advantage of the scam tracking map, and you can report scams that are occurring in your area, and you can read about scams that are reported by others around the country and close to home. So there's also on the Fraud Watch Network site, you can find out what to do. There's a lot of good information there if you want to find out what to do if you've been victimized or someone you know has been victimized. So you can protect yourself. I hope the session has been informative. And next slide, please, Sonia. If ever you think you're not sure if you've been victimized or if you're not sure that it's been a scam, contact the Fraud Watch Network Helpline at 1-877-908-3360. And with that brief presentation, I hope you've learned good information about the kind of scams that might be going on and how you can protect yourself. Thank you all for participating, and you're welcome to unmute your phones and ask questions at this time. And we'd like to hear about any ideas and suggestions you may have, or if you've come across any scams as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarita. I really enjoy this presentation because it's just all these helpful reminders around how to keep ourselves safe. What I especially appreciate is this Fraud Watch Network helpline, because not only can you go to the helpline to see if to check if something's a fraud or a scam, but you could also use the helpline to report frauds and scams that you see happening, with your friends or in your neighborhood. So thanks for sharing that helpline number, 1-877-908-3360. I know we shared our, let me go to the previous slide here. Our AARP.org/FraudWatch Network, all one word, Fraud Watch Network. That's a fantastic resource as well if you prefer to read things and look them up online. So at this time, I'd like to invite folks to ask questions in the chat or to share their tips for keeping themselves safe from identity theft or other types of fraud. Would like to just promote this space as a space for all of us to share and learn from each other. Gary just typed into the chat, I occasionally see email that I'm part of class action lawsuits, but I don't respond because I'm afraid it's a scam or the settlement is so low, like $3. Do you have any insights on those types of notices?
Well, some of them might be real, but if so, I think your best bet would be to Google who the company is and see if there is a class action lawsuit against that. But you're right, in general, it's not worth it if it's just $3, so don't, don't become a victim. But the safest thing would be to double check who the company is and see if they are indeed part of a lawsuit, I would say.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Sarita. I know that I've received those notices in the mail, and there was one time I actually brought one to my attorney, and what my attorney advised me was that, generally with those class action lawsuits, you don't have to do anything. They're just informational notices, but good to check in on those. In this particular situation, Sarita and Gary, this class action lawsuit was from a former employer. So it was, it was an organization that I had a previous relationship with. But if it was like for, let's say, a product that I've never used, I'd be a little fishy. I'd find that a little fishy.
Exactly. Good point.
And then I have another question here in the chat. What do you think of LifeLock ID theft protection?
I mean, that is a legitimate company and they are good at what they do. And if you're willing to pay the subscription, go for it, because they do keep an eye for the people who participate in there. So yes, by all means, or if you want the free way of doing it, you can go to the website we talked about earlier and check on that. But LifeLock ID does keep an eye on the people, and they will alert you if they find your name out there on the dark web. The thing is, there's not really much you can do except that it alerts you that, okay, my information has been stolen. So yes, it is a good way to monitor. It takes off the pressure of yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
But, anyone else have any information on that?
Yeah, please either type into the chat or unmute yourselves if you have any insights, any experience using the, the LifeLock ID theft protection.
Yeah. I know my family has bought into that. So that's how I know they get the alerts regularly if something is stolen. There's information out there on the dark web. They tell you, okay, we found your information out there. So they do work. It does work.
Good to know. Good to know. At this time, just wanted to give some quick hellos in the chat. John Matthews is zooming in from Ladera. Bertha is zooming from home in Daly City. Joyce is from South San Francisco. Welcome to all. And if you haven't had a chance to introduce yourselves in the chat, please do so. We're taking questions right now and would love to hear your thoughts, advice to share around how you keep yourself safe from identity theft and frauds and scams. I see Gary here has typed into the chat, the American Automobile Association offers identity protection as a service to its members. The Auto Club, not just policy holders. Oh, wow, great tip. AAA.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Great tip. Any other tips? Okay, well, we're giving folks some time to type into the chat or unmute themselves. Sarita, I have a question for you. You know, with respect to the AARP.org Fraud Watch Network, what's your favorite aspect or resource on that website?
You know, I enjoy just going on there to check out what's going on and what kind of scams are going on. So I find that a great resource, really. And also the email alerts that come around. I don't know if you saw that, but recently there was like a story, a romance scam that was published out there. And it's really, it highlights how widespread the problems of people. And especially during the pandemic, there were a lot of older people who were lonely and fell victim to a lot of these scams. So it highlights the importance of to be alert at all times to the different frauds that are out there.
Sarita, I'm glad you brought up the issue of romance scams. For me, those are the lowest of the low because they really prey on people's feelings, especially during this time, you know, when so many of us have been socially isolated. They've really preyed on, you know, those scammers have really taken advantage of this time to do that. You know, there's another question in the chat from Joyce. She asked, can you tell us about the most common scams right now? Well, gosh, there are so many.
Yes.
There are so many.
There's
Gosh,
so many.
where do we begin? You know, I know that at least for myself, my mom gets a whole bunch on the phone, all of the robocalls. It's sad. It's to the point where I've advised her just not to even pick up the phone if she doesn't know where the number is coming from, because there are folks who are telling her to call because her social security number has been compromised. Sarita, have you heard of any new ones lately?
I have not heard of any new ones, but I have been receiving a lot of scam text messages telling me I've won this wonderful prize and can I just log in here, you know? But it's disturbing because I used to think my phone was the one secure place. Apparently not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I see we have another question from Julie S. She says, do you recommend checking your credit on places like Experian? Yes. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax are the three places where you can get your credit score. And if I'm not mistaken, I think each one will give you one free evaluation. So.
Great question, Julie. Really important, because that's a great way to monitor on your own without having to pay for a company like LifeLock to stay on top of what is happening with your credit. Sarita also mentioned annualcreditreport.com. And Sarita, I think you had said that you could get up to 3 credit reports.
Yes, one from each of the 3 companies.
Perfect.
Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
So all you have to do is just go to this website and you could get access to those.
Yes.
Oh, Sarita, one of the common scam is also Facebook. And you would get random Facebook friends that want to friend you. I would say be careful with that. They're not who they are.
Yep. Thank you.
That's such a great point, Tina. Talk about, people who are really utilizing this time, preying on people's need for friendship, and company. And that's one thing that we advise is if you don't know the name, if you don't know the person, then do not accept their friend request. And I would even go a little bit further, because there is so much identity theft out there, is if a friend or relative has friended you on Facebook, give them a call or send them an email and ask them, I got a friend request from you. Thank you. Is this indeed you? And usually that's a good way to prevent theft and scams, I should say, scams on Facebook as well.
Right. Good point. Good point.
Excuse me. Hi.
Hi, Julie.
I have another question, and that is when you're talking about Facebook, I noticed there are a lot of random messages, not from a personal person, but from somebody that looks like someone you don't know, and it's fun. It'll say, what is your first dog's name, etc. And somebody told me that's a way that people fish to find out what your password could possibly be. Have you heard that before?
Go ahead.
Oh, I have not, but I could believe it. Yeah. I would absolutely believe that.
Yes, that's what I've been. Very careful.
That's what I heard. I heard that they see your name, okay, and they say it's Julie S. And then what they'll do then is say, you've already answered it. They'll say online, here's a game, what was the first name of what city were you born in? Or here's a game, how many dogs, what was your first dog's name or first animal's name? And people do use those kind of things for passwords. So exactly. I heard to be careful about that.
Yes, very good point, Julie. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So, gosh, Julie, I think we even have some advice from you about commenting randomly on, or I should say, commenting on posts from people you're not familiar with, because all those posts are public, and that's a place where frauds and scammers go fishing for people's personal information.
Absolutely, and those are the questions that they ask you for security, right? When you're logging into a new place. So something like that should trigger us to rethink before responding on a public website, for sure. Thank you, Julia. That was a very good point.
If you include the word Trump in any of your responses, you'll immediately get deleted, so no problem.
Social media is a hoot. Well,
the other thing that I noticed is when I pick up the phone and the first thing I hear is a boop, then I always start my answer with, boop, who's this calling?
love it. Hey, anything to throw those frauds and scammers off. There's another Fraud Watch Network volunteer. His name is Tim. And whenever he gets a call, so he's retired and he gets a big kick out of doing this. So one of our other Fraud Watch volunteers, Tim, what he'll do is he'll actually keep the scammer on the phone. So he'll mess with them a little bit. And with the idea of, well, if I know what I'm doing, I'm keeping this scammer on the phone, that means that this scammer will not be calling somebody else. So kind of an unconventional way of fighting fraud. I don't necessarily recommend even picking up the phone at all, but he's an experienced fraud fighter. So that's one of the things that he does.
That's one way, yep.
If you have time, that's a good idea.
Yep. Keep them from calling everybody else.
Yep. Well, another way is I think you can put your name on a do not call list. And that works, but it only works for a while. And I know this from experience, but it does help. It does help to put your name on a do not call list. And that way solicitors or whoever it is will not call, your name gets blocked. So you can sign up for something like that, but eventually they do come back.
They do. They do. And one of the reasons why is I was on one of those lists. Mm-hmm. And what happened is I engaged the guy in conversation, the person that was soliciting. And I said, I'm on the do not call list. And he said, yeah, well, how's that working out? Obviously he got through.
Right.
Well, that was rude.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And he probably marked me on the list to continue calling me after that.
Well, from what I've learned, that if you tell someone to put you on their do not call list, they could say that they'll put you on the list, but it doesn't necessarily protect you from other calls, because there's technology out there that will just randomize phone numbers.
Right.
And they'll just go through,
their robocalls, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, gosh, we have just a couple of minutes left. Any other tips that folks would like to share about how they stay safe from identity theft or other types of frauds and scams? Would love to hear those, so we could share those with the rest of the AARP community.
I would like to comment, which I do, and that is you have to be careful about people that I can't remember what that's called, where you put your credit card into something. I did it into a gas station to pay for my gas. And within less than 12 hours, I was getting a call from Citibank saying, did you just get gas 3 times? And did you buy something from Singapore? Wow. So what I'm saying is those credit cards, scanners, I guess they're called, or whatever they're called, you have to be careful about that too, because they'll steal your identity theft and your credit card number and sell it to other countries. So just to let you know, that happened to me about, that was a long time ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So that's how long they've been doing this kind of thing.
Oh, wow, Julie. Were you able to get that resolved?
Oh, yes, because it was the bank for the credit card that called me and said, we see unusual activity. So what a good thing to do, just FYI too, is when you're on vacation, you all probably may have heard this before, make sure you tell your credit card company that you are visiting Singapore. So if they see credit card action there, that, that they think they know it's legitimate. They don't have to call you and say somebody stole your credit card. Right. So that's just another tip.
Yes. Thank you. That's a very good tip.
I have one that happened to me 2 months ago. On Facebook Messenger, I was getting messages from my friend who I thought was my friend. They used the same picture as him, and then same ID except the last 3 digit, they changed it to a different digit number. So we're having a conversation, and I looked at him, I'm like, this ID has like a few numbers on it, and I found out that they were phishing, you know. But they were asking all kinds of information. How are you doing? How are your kids? Things like that.
Wow.
Which is kind of scary.
It is. It is. You know, as great as technology is, it can be very damaging.
Right.
Very damaging. Right. We have to be very careful. That was good that you picked up on that, though.
Right. Just the last 3 digits, right?
Wow.
Wow, someone impersonating your friend. That's pretty low.
Yep.
That is pretty low. So using friendship as a way to get to your personal information.
Exactly. So that was a little scary for me. So I told him right away. I told him, hey, someone's impersonating you. And I was having a conversation.
Well, if there aren't any more questions or tips, just want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Tina, for having me and Sarita present some news from the Fraud Watch Network, how to keep folks safe from identity theft and other types of frauds and scams. This concludes our presentation, and I'll be here another minute or so if anyone has any questions or any burning thoughts.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Thank you so much, Grace Sonia. What an important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Grace Sonia, for forwarding the slides and moderating.
Well, thank you for that fantastic presentation, Sarita. Really enjoy and appreciate it, and appreciate the work that you're doing, trying to raise awareness about identity theft, frauds and scams, as well as widening our Fraud Watch network. So thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.